it back to you in the studio.
All right, Andrew, check back in a little bit. Let's bring in our panel here tonight. Scott Levinson, Democratic political consultant and the president of the Advance Group. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Michael Balboni, former Republican New York State Senator and Assemblyman. And Brad Gerstmann, a political consultant and founding partner of Gotham Government Relations. All right, guys, get a little snapshot here, albeit all Democrats there talking to Andrew. I'll start with you. What do you think you're going to hear, and what would you like to hear if they're not the same thing?
Well, and I think the president's going to continue the themes of the inauguration. And I think what's remarkable today is the rhetoric that's coming out from the other side just reminds us all how divided this country is. Maybe not along voting public lines, but certainly along the rhetoric of its elected officials. And so the Republicans seem to be doubling down on this smaller government individualism. I think what we're going to be seeing from the president tonight is more of this we the citizens theme, that we're all in this together.
To that point though, Dominic, I think he's right, but I think we're going to hear more talks about spending on stuff. And there won't be much, if any, talk about what to cut. You surprised? I mean, to Scott's point, it was very similar to what we heard in the inauguration, was probably as most progressive Obama as we've heard in 4 years. You think we hear more of that, or you think, hey, he wants to get stuff done in the next year or so? He may not like it, but he's got to make deals that he might not love to get the bigger stuff.
I don't think he's going to be talking about budget cuts tonight. I don't even think that's the appropriate setting, the State of the Union address, to do exactly that. There's time down the road for that, budget addresses and so on. But what I do like, Richard, is the fact that the president's going to focus on jobs. That's what all Americans want to hear. And gun violence. I mean, let's not gloss over the fact that this young lady from Chicago performed at the inauguration, and a week later she was dead. A week later.
Yeah. And we'll talk about guns, we'll talk about immigration, we'll talk about that. But I always think, you heard it there, and I think he's right. Tone's overrated, right? In terms of, in the end, it's what Michael Tullow says, in the back rooms, what gets worked out. But Brad, there's going to be progressives listening to this carefully to say, well, he won here, he doesn't have to run again, help out the base. And then there's the folks in the middle that say, help me out here a little bit. If I'm going to do something, Republicans want immigration even more than Democrats do, reform, you could argue. Does he try and help deals get done here, or is he just talking to the base as his audience?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think the way deals get done when a president is reelected, the way this president was, and the way the opposition that he had in his first term, is by holding firm and holding his ground in moving his progressive agenda forward and saying that this is the way it's going to be. It's the only way he's gotten anything done so far. Keep in mind that the Republican Party is in shambles in Washington right now. They're going to have 2 rebuttals. They don't even know, which side is really in control at this point in time, and it's very, very challenging. To me, the biggest question is how hard will the president come down on the Republican Party and hammer on them in front of the public?
He's right. They had a bad election season, Republicans, and I can argue you're going to have some dysfunction tonight. You got Rand Paul talking after Marco Rubio. But Michael, you know this better than these guys. There's 230 Republicans in the House who got safe seats, and they think they're going to pick up Senate seats in the next election cycle, not lose them. Do they have incentive here when they look at the map nationally here and they see the demographics changing to be incentivized to try and meet the president halfway? Are they saying, forget this, we lost the election, but I'm not giving in to this guy?
Normally the map goes to who's got the mandate and who doesn't. But when you take a look at the president's polling numbers, they're 50%. In addition, which the president won by 3.5 million votes out of 110 million cast. We are a divided nation, just as you were saying. And so what I think they're going to be doing, they're going to take an issue-by-issue approach that says, on immigration, we can go to this area, keep to our base. Gun control, probably not. They're going to pick and choose the issues as they relate to their base, saying, you know what, no one's got all the answers. No one's got all the electorate. So we're going to continue going with some of the base and pick and choose the issues that we're going to do.
Now, you guys know, Dominic and I work in a business where we base everything on sound bites here, or they say, what can you put it on a bumper sticker? And it's a question people are already asking in advance of the speech. What will the president's so-called bumper sticker be this time around? Now, for each of his last State of the Union addresses, he's had one. In 2010, you might remember it was, we won't quit, I won't quit. Next year in 2011, it was we do big things, and last year it was an America built to last. Well, give me an idea here. If you're crafting this speech, Scott, what do you want the takeaway to be tonight here for people writing the headlines for the dailies and for talking heads like Dom and I to try and sum up basically what will be an hour address?
I think the takeaway from tonight's speech is going to be, we are back. And I think that's consistent, again, with the themes of the inauguration. I think
Is we as the country or we as the party?
we as the country. And I think that's consistent with the citizen theme. It's consistent with his examples of growing the economy. It's consistent with America standing for something on principles.
If he says, hey, listen, we're at 8%. We're having trouble. We got it. It's better than it was, but we're at 8% unemployment. I can get us to 6.5 here, but guys, you got to help me. We got to build stuff.
See,
if he says that, is that a lead balloon?
No, I mean, I think he's going to have a real message on manufacturing, a real message on jobs creation, but more importantly, the fact that the recession ended 3.5 years ago hasn't resonated for the majority of Americans, if you read today's poll numbers. And I think he's got to fight that.
Yeah, but and the president is, I think, is going to have to make clear that, you know, in a lot of ways, that jobs bill that he put out, okay, in his last State of the Union address before re-election, was an opportunity with tax incentives and all the Republican pieces that they've put into legislation to grow jobs and to grow the economy. He just got his legs taken out from under him, so the president had no opportunity.
But nobody at home cares. But they just care about.
But I think he's going to
job?
have to.
Yeah.
I think he's going to need to start that discussion again, and I think he needs to be more aggressive about it. And part of that bumper sticker is, don't forget who won. He won, and I think that his new swagger that the president has and that he's come through with since his election has been helpful in trying to get things done, especially, don't forget, I mean, I'm going to have to reiterate, when the Republicans are in disarray, they don't want to look silly and foolish like they can't govern.
If you had the presidency here, would you say use the stick or the carrot?
I'd probably use a stick.
Yeah.
Because you got to try it, you got to bring people to the table, and you got to say, you know, this is what you're looking at, and down the line. Because remember, you're running again, I'm not.
Yeah.
But but at the same time, there's another narrative that he's got to pay attention to eventually. For state governments and for local governments, they're still reeling.
Yeah.
The recession is not over, and so you take a look at a lot of real pain, and we all know that our tax bills really revolve around our local tax bills. Yes, the Washington, the income tax, to pay attention to that.
Unfunded mandate's the dirtiest two words here for every local official, right?
Absolutely. But here's the other thing. In our area, the other thing we're reminded of after Sandy and after this last snowstorm, we want effective government. So it's the two things. I always fought that when I was in office. Cut my taxes, provide more services.
Yeah.
There is no rational thought behind that. And that's what the president... Yes, you were. And you're the one who yelled the most.
I'll let you wrap it for a second before we go break down the bumper sticker tonight.
I agree with Scott, but also jobs in America. That's all that anybody really cares about. The guns off the street,
I'm getting ready to
guns
wave
off
the
the
flag.
street,
Guns
and
in America.
jobs.
Morning in America. All right, keep the conversation going online. Go to Facebook and Twitter, sound off. What do you want to hear from the president tonight here? And tonight, we are asking you to join us during and after the State of the Union address to tell us how you think the president is doing and did. Again, we're going to have complete coverage not only of the address, but in the aftermath, we'll get live reaction in Washington. We'll get you involved as well. You see the toll-free number on the screen. You can join us there and also through social media. All right, when we come back, we're going to ask if we will see an Obama 2.0 tonight, and what kind of president do we expect for these next 4 years? We'll get into that and a lot more after this.